This one small detail in the Bible shifted everything for me. Let me explain. Luke 5, the calling of the first disciple. You know the story. It's when Jesus did this miraculous thing with the fish. Originally, the fishermen were a little bit skeptical when this rabbi tells them, hey, this is the way that you should fish this time. Trust me on this. And they're like, okay, master, we'll do it, only because he said so. What struck me was Simon Peter's reaction. He says, depart from me, for I am a sinful man. And so the details that stuck out were, well, why do you call him master? Usually that's not the first thing that you say to somebody when you first meet them. If anything, if he didn't know Jesus that well, he would call him rabbi or teacher, which he actually does in John 1 when he first met Jesus. Looking at other accounts of the calling of the first disciples, Mark 1 and Matthew, I forgot the chapter in them. Those accounts are similar to each other, but there are details in those accounts that are vastly different from the Luke 5 account with the miraculous fish catching. The other two accounts don't talk about the fish catching. It was mentioned that they were mending their nets, and then Luke 5 is a different instance. They were coming back from a failed night of fishing, and they were washing their nets, calling it a night and accepting defeat. But wait, in the other accounts, it says that they followed Jesus immediately. The sons of Zebedee left their father, even in that. So what's going on here? The interpretation is that these are not the same account of the same meeting. This actually showcases a timeline or a storyline of their interactions with Jesus. There are actually 3 interactions, in particular for Andrew and Simon Peter. We have the first meeting in John 1 when they asked Jesus to stay with them, and at that point, Simon Peter calls Jesus teacher, as expected. In Mark and Matthew, they left immediately and started following him. So then what of Luke 5? It seems similar. Jesus asked them to follow him as well, but totally different details and totally different reaction from Simon Peter. Is it that Luke was just more detailed because that's kind of his style, an orderly account? All these differences are just stylistic differences amongst the authors, or is this a 3-part thing where Jesus asked them to follow him? They joyfully, excitedly say yes, drop everything, immediately go. And then, perhaps, they think, this life is not what I had expected, or this wasn't what I signed up for. Maybe they decided that this was not for them, so they went back to fishing. That's where Luke 5 picks up, this second time that Jesus is calling them to follow him. And if that's the case, that makes sense why Simon Peter calls Jesus master instead of rabbi. If you use that word master, the original Greek word implies that there is this submission that's happening to the person that you are calling master. That implies that there's some sort of relationship there, as opposed to this more distant rabbi term that he would have used. That actually explains why Simon Peter's reaction seems so dramatic. Yes, he is very emotional and full of zeal. Yes, that's the Simon Peter that we all know and love. But what if, upon seeing this miracle, after having said yes to Jesus, but not being able to follow through, like quitting and returning back to fishing, he sees Jesus come to him again, not to chastise him, not to make him feel guilty, and not to tell Peter how disappointed he was, but he says to Simon Peter once again, follow me. Is that why Simon Peter says, depart from me, for I'm a sinful man? He's basically saying, God, depart from me. I failed you. I failed you. I don't deserve you coming to me again and you pursuing me. And yet Jesus' response remains the same. Come follow me. Do life with me. I think that's so beautiful, and that's so encouraging to us as believers, because how many times have we said yes to God in our zeal, and we find that we can't follow through because we're doing things in our own power, even if it's things that we think God is calling us to do, or maybe it is, but we're doing it our way. We're doing it in our own power. We're trying to impress God when God doesn't need to be impressed by us. God has already determined that we are his, and he has already determined how much he loves us. Even while we were children of wrath, he still loved us. He still calls us. That's his heart. So it's not about how well we perform, and it's not about even us following through on everything. It is this broken and contrite heart that I believe Simon Peter displays in Luke 5, where he realizes his own weaknesses, his lack, his sinfulness, and yet experiences Jesus like coming in close to him and Jesus inviting him into his life. Simon Peter understood the gospel right there. Though we are undeserving, and though we will fail God time and time again, he will not be disappointed in us. He will just redeem us over and over and over and over again. And it's in that process that we get to know God much more intimately. I don't know about you, but that is good news to me, and I just wanted to share.